At the turn of 2021, Chandler and Oliveira were tasked by the UFC to usher in the new era of the 155-pound division. This came in the wake of Khabib Nurmagomedov's surprise retirement, broken after the devastating loss of his father. And whilst ultimately Chandler fell short of achieving his goal of becoming undisputed, this wasn't the first time that he had tasted defeat in his lengthy and storied career, nor would it be the last. See, for Chandler, the outcome isn't exactly what motivates him, it's the process, his highs and lows splayed onto the canvas. It's a story some might not expect. And whilst pieces of his career by themselves may look like defining moments to solidify a legacy, or worse yet, glimpses into the dense darkness of defeat, but it's only when a fighter is shattered that they can rebuild a better whole. This is Michael Chandler. Missouri-born Michael Chandler started his athletic journey from a young age. He grew into a seasoned wrestler whose career was characterized by over 100 career wins and 4 qualifying spots in the NCAA championships. The numerous awards, accolades, and achievements didn't happen by chance though. Chandler's mother and father instilled within him a work ethic and drive many children are starved of. They provided guidance and structure to carry him through academic and athletic endeavors. The very house he grew up in, constructed by his father's bare hands. His father was the embodiment of the hard-working, blue-collar spirit that Missouri was built on. As the local carpenter, he would work long and physically demanding hours. His mother was an established and successful businesswoman who helped develop an upbringing steeped in academia. Despite the relentless work ethic ingrained from a young age and the athletic prowess developed over the course of a rigorous collegiate wrestling career, he never achieved his ultimate dream of claiming an NCAA title, despite 4 opportunities. This cyclical failure and inability to reach the pinnacle of wrestling would ignite a desire within him to establish himself as the champion in a different crucible, and so Chandler, with every possession he owned, moved to Las Vegas to take on a new sport, mixed martial arts.
Here's Michael Chandler and Kyle Swabley.
In a move many would protest against, Chandler, with a little under 6 months of training, skipped amateur fights and headed straight for professional competition. August 8th, 2009 would see his debut in the welterweight division. A dominant and decisive first-round TKO over Kyle Swabley announced the emergence of Chandler in MMA. He made his Strikeforce debut only 3 months later, once again putting his heavy hands on display with another TKO stoppage. It was more of a point that he was making, a college wrestler who didn't use it, a man determined to blaze a new path for himself. He was heading to the top. With momentum gathering, he would enter an up-and-coming promotion, and he was there to claim a title.
In 2009, Bellator joined the MMA world, and with it came a new and exciting way to determine its champions and #1 contenders, through the format of an elimination-style tournament lasting a full season.
Some athletes are destined for greatness, and Chandler was a shining example of this dance with fate. His Bellator run to the title is nothing short of spectacular, a dominant rise to claim the Season 4 lightweight tournament title, with a series of wins culminating in a dominant victory over future Bellator Hall of Famer Patricky Pitbull. But now standing in front of him on his journey to the top and the Bellator lightweight world title was a veteran of the sport, a man who had seated himself in the division almost a decade earlier and who was holding a record of 22-2. Chandler would have to take out the ever-violent Eddie Alvarez.
Michael Chandler versus the champion Eddie Alvarez for Bellator's lightweight world championship. He hurt him bad. He's letting go. Alvarez dropped him in right hand by Chandler, looking to finish before the bell. Alvarez trying to let go with another good right hand. He could be looking for the finish here, Sean. Oh, another big right hand. He's hurt. He's hurt badly. Now giving up his back. Chandler with that. And now it's our new Bellator lightweight world champion, Michael Chandler.
Chandler had already built a strong foundation for his legacy. Within just 4 years of participation in the sport, he had earned a 12-0 undefeated record and become the Bellator world champion with multiple defenses. It was a short and awe-inspiring journey to the top.
I got shot out of a cannon. I became an All-American at the University of Missouri in 2009, and I fought my first fight in August of 2009, and I went on a 12-fight win streak. I didn't lose for 4.5 years. Had 12 fights. I finished 9 of those 12 fights To say that I got used to winning and winning fast and winning violently was an understatement. I would go out there, win a fight quickly, collect my paycheck, and on to the next one.
But good things never last, and Chandler's career was about to spiral out of control.
For the people that don't know, I went through 3 losses in a row. I mean, that's rough. I mean, the first loss to Eddie Alvarez was a tough split decision. A lot of people thought I won. So you kind of get this, oh, woe is me attitude, which I never had really had before. And all of a sudden it's like, why did this happen to me? Then had a back injury and then fought Will Brooks when I shouldn't have on basically 1 week of training, which led to another loss, which led to another lack of confidence.
Congratulations, Will. I'll be back stronger.
And then another loss. So I went through that tough, dark time.
What is he complaining about? Chandler turning his back, talking to Herzog, covering up, and that is it! There's the stoppage from Jason Herzog.
And the biggest problem wasn't how tough I was. The biggest problem wasn't how strong I was or how good of a fighter I was. It was because the image I had of myself didn't match up to what I was trying to accomplish, because a man or a woman will never be able to consistently perform in a manner that is inconsistent with the way that he or she sees himself.
It's strange to see Chandler's approach post this dramatic decline. Most fighters seek a new gym to rebuild their training, or even to quit entirely, relenting to that overwhelming intrusive thought of not being adequate enough. But Chandler realized that it was the cognitive dissonance of being great, but not believing it, that was in fact the true enemy.
I think a healthy self-image is the most important component of being successful in life, and I wasn't taking care of that aspect of my life.
If you want to find the consistent success, you have to believe that you deserve the consistent success.
In a world where we are often told that it is wrong to consider ourselves great or extraordinary, where humbleness and modesty is promoted above the belief that we are capable of amazing things, arrogance and egotism conflated with having a genuine, healthy self-image, it's all a form of spiritual and developmental neutering that convinces people that dumbing down their belief in themselves is the correct course of action to behave appropriately in the world around them. But Chandler argues that not only believing you are capable of eminence, but also that this is your sole duty on earth, to take the gift of life by the horns, exploit it for every last drop of progress possible within your capability.
There's nothing more important in this entire world than your self-image, and it's yours and yours alone. She can tell me that I'm great, he can tell me I'm great, everybody around me can tell I'm great, but when it's just you and yourself, by yourself, you have to truly believe that you were put on this earth for awesome things, for great triumphs, for awesome opportunities, and just do amazing things, and there is no limit to what you can do.
The hard work and the dedication will get you to the state championships, and the hard work and the dedication will get you to the national championships, but it's only the self-image, your self-belief, your self-concept that's going to get you to the medal and not go home empty-handed.
Chandler found himself crippled by the inability to see himself as a champion, to see himself as one of the greatest fighters on planet Earth. Those self-imposed chains allowed him to fall victim to 688 days without a win. 3 fights lost on one of the biggest platforms in the sport. That dark and lonely place of self-pity and failure was something that needed to be broken out of. That could only start with a reframing of who he felt he was, to become aligned with reality. Chandler was a champion, is a champion, regardless of the belt, and it was time to not only act like it, but to believe it, to accept that he was destined for greatness. And for anyone who may consider this train of thought extreme hubris, I would challenge it and say that perhaps your self-talk isn't serving you very well. I know, because what Chandler says not only speaks to me, it probably speaks to all of us. Self-talk can be destructive, malicious, and hurtful. It holds us back in so many ways. That thought in your head saying that you're not adequate enough, that what you're doing isn't good enough, you're not performing optimally in every aspect of your life, you're not great, not capable of becoming more than the sum of your opportunities and lived experience. It's a devastating path to continue on, and if you don't believe me, then we'll look at what can happen if you decide to change how you view yourself.
You need to stop being perfect and just try to be successful in that. Even if you failed, that failure was an event. It's not who you are. It's not a person.
In defeat, there is agency if you're willing to look for it, and Chandler never shied away from his failures and shortcomings. That courage to look within the remnants of defeat and salvage lessons to be learned is something only the best truly do. Chandler had grown from them 688 days without a win in ways that are hard to imagine, and so he painted onto the canvas a masterpiece of a comeback. After a 2-fight return win streak, he was granted a shot for the lightweight championship against Patricky Pitbull, and he would win in devastating fashion, going on to defend his title against Benson Henderson. His comeback, however, would be marred by a freak accident against Brett Primus, but it truly was a freak accident that offered nothing in the way of lessons to be learned, and he proved that by going on another win streak that culminated in a dominant win in a rematch against Primus that got him the belt back. Chandler's shift in mentality and how he viewed himself enabled him to tear through the lightweight division in Bellator, resulting in multiple championship belts and many highlight finishes. It just went to prove the utility in training your mind and using it as a weapon in life. It stood as an example that the journey inwards has a deep and profound impact extrinsically. It just takes the fortitude to accept that invite into a place few ever go, the dark recesses of our mind where terrible truths are hidden and cathartic secrets are waiting to be discovered. Chandler was more than just a champion. He was an inspiration to his peers, fans and family. He was a leader, showing a new way to traverse life. And his story gives us hope that perhaps we can change the way we see ourselves in the world to great effect. There was one question that lingered, however. What would a credible win, one not marred by controversy, do to a man who had seemingly figured it all out, who had seemingly become invincible?
Lightweight championship. It will be up for grabs. Mauricio Pitbull takes the center of the cage. He's in the blue gloves. Michael Chandler in the red gloves. Unpredictable. Chandler gets rocked by Mauricio Pitbull. You talk about unpredictable. The referee is intervened, and Mauricio Pitbull has done it. Makes Bellator history. Lightning by knockout. The new Bellator lightweight champion.
I walk back to the locker room, and I have this exact shirt on, and I sit down. Coaches don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Wife doesn't know what to say. And I'm feeling this overwhelming just disgust with the sport, myself, the equilibrium, the punch. I should have zigged when I should have zagged, and blah, 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 blah. So I have this shirt. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go shower. I just want to go shower. I had the shirt on like this, and I grab it by the neck, and I pull it over my head, and I start to do this, and I'm about to rip this shirt in half. I was about to go Hulkamania on it. And I thought to myself, no, Michael, don't do it. Number one, you've been here before. Show your family and your coaches that you're a champion. You're gonna handle this like a champion. And your wife's sitting right there. Throw the shirt down and whatever. I go take a shower. I'm there in the shower, and I'm wiping my hair, and I look down at the crease of my elbows. And you guys know when you wear a brand new shirt, you get those little fuzzies from the shirt. And I had them in the crease of my elbows. And I'm just like, I'm so disgusted with this. I got to get the shirt off of me. You know, I got to get the feeling of the shirt, the feeling of the loss, the feeling of the setback, the feeling of the failure. I got to get it off me. So I get out of the shower, and I come back, and I finally clean myself off, and then I'm picking all my stuff up. I throw all my stuff in my bag, and I grab that shirt. I'm like, oh, this stupid shirt. I want to forget everything about this fight. So I'm looking for the trash can. I can't find a trash can. I'm not going to leave it there because I'm not that kind of person. So I put it in my bag, and I said, I'll throw it away later. I get home a couple days later, and I'm cleaning out my bag, and we're doing my laundry, and I pull out this shirt. I'm like, there's that stupid shirt again. Like that shirt that makes me feel like such a failure, that shirt that reminds me of the knockout, the shirt that reminds me of 25,000 people basically staring at me and laughing at me, and all the millions of people watching me on the team, and I got my sponsors who I'm supposed to win for, and all I'm doing is I lose, and this shirt reminds me of that. And I go to throw it away, and immediately I get this cold chill, and I'm getting chills thinking about it. I get this cold chill on my body, and that just said in my head, I said, Michael, put the shirt back on. So immediately from there, I said, babe, I'm going on a run. I put this shirt back on, and I go out, and I go on the 5-mile run. I'm not a big runner, but I go on like a 5-mile run. A couple days later, I came to this gym, and I hit pads. Washed it. A couple days later, had a great wrestling practice. Had another run, had another lift. Had 25 to 30 to 50 workouts in this exact shirt between that last fight and this fight here in the blue. And as fate would have it, I went out there and punched my opponent in the back of the ear and knocked him out in 2 minutes. Equilibrium went. I rained on top of him. Ref jumps in, and all of a sudden I'm the winner. A failure can only be erased by success, and you can't have success when you're sitting at home mulling over your own thoughts, when you're twiddling your thumbs feeling sorry for yourself. Put the shirt back on.
Regardless of the development of unbreakable mentalities, unyielding philosophies, or undefeated psychologies, life cannot be predicted. There are always extrinsic forces outside of our control, from a rolled foot to a punch that you never saw coming. No matter how much ownership you take over your own actions, or how impenetrable your psyche is, the cold reality of life brings with it an honesty that is undeniable. It's a tide that cannot be ceased. But that's the point. It's not resistance against the flood of things we cannot control. It's acceptance, going with the flow of life. Chandler isn't selling a philosophy grounded in perfection, one that can deflect any sense of failure. No, it's one built on embracing the trials and tribulations of life, and when they do come, and they will, it's about putting the metaphorical shirt back on and wearing it as armor. Chandler never expected that a change in mindset would bring with it invincibility, but what he had instead developed was the qualities of a man who knew how to get back up after a setback, how to not give up in the face of defeat, and how to claw tooth and nail back to the top. That loss showed us that defeat is not the end of the road, and that perfection isn't what Chandler wants to be remembered for, it's success. Chandler's time in Bellator was coming to an end. After a knockout win over former UFC lightweight champion Benson Henderson, Chandler was finally a free agent, and it was fairly obvious what he had his sights set on. It's just that MMA fans were not expecting the extent to which Chandler would be welcomed into the UFC. The news broke confirming his spot on the roster, but also interestingly the fact that Chandler would immediately skip to the head of the queue, serving as the backup fighter for the lightweight title between Khabib and Gaethje. It's no secret that the lightweight division is the deepest and most stacked division in the UFC. Anyone in the top 10 are one fight away from claiming a shot at the title, and for an outsider to waltz in and take the top spot was certainly unprecedented, but the UFC saw something in Chandler that hardcore MMA fans had been privy to for years. A star. He wasn't lying when he said that hard work pays off, and after a long career outside of the UFC, he was finally where he belonged. Whilst he would ultimately never have his chance to perform on that card, he would quickly be matched up with one of the best in the division. The UFC were clearly scrambling to fill the hole that Khabib left in the wake of his retirement, and matchups between top lightweights were put together in order to determine who would be the pair to square off for the vacant title. Oliveira had a claim with a win over Tony Ferguson at UFC 256. Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier were about to square off in the main event of UFC 257, with Chandler and Hooker opening that very main card. 5 men were competing in a mini tournament, and for a brief moment, the memory of Khabib began to fade into distant memory as the division pushed on. Chandler wouldn't fail to disappoint, and crushed Dan Hooker in electrifying and dominant fashion, dispelling any doubt that may have wrapped itself around Chandler's jump to the top. This was his first fight in the UFC, and it's one that had earned him the honour of performance of the night, but also the admiration of every single MMA fan who had neglected to pay attention to his career previously. Chandler was home.
McGregor! Surprise, surprise! There's a new king in the lightweight division!
Despite Dustin's underdog win against McGregor, he would decide that waiting out for the rubber match with Conor was the best choice. For a man that had professed that it was the title or bust, it was funny to see money lay waste to intentions that had legacy at the forefront. The decision left only 2 people to try and plaster the wound that Khabib left, and if anything, the matchup for the vacant lightweight title certainly guaranteed violence.
I didn't come over to the UFC wanting to tiptoe around the top 10. I wanted to come in, make a statement right away, kick down the door right away, and I think I'm just the beneficiary of some interesting circumstances. Khabib retiring, Poirier and Conor being tied up in the trilogy, but here we are, got the title shot.
I really feel like I'm living a dream, win, lose, or draw. You know, here we are. Got a busted up eye and another loss on my record, but hey, I've come back from worse. Felt like everything was clicking in there. Just got caught, zigged when I should have zagged, and here we are talking to you without the belt on this table, but we're gonna keep moving forward as stuff moves fast. You know, there was moments in my career where I never thought I'd end up here. I never thought that the door would open, and now it has, and the first one was the highest of highs, and this one's, but as my son knows, every young man falls, but every young man gets back up, and the sun will rise tomorrow, and when I fly home without the belt, we got some explaining to do, but we're gonna figure it out.
And if it were the first loss on Chandler's record, or perhaps even still the second, there may have been a crack in that persona, the one that speaks of such courage to move past a loss, almost the moment it happens. But this was a place the man knew well, a solemn and grim standing with not much but bitterness to offer. That is, for most men, but for Chandler, this is a place of growth, reflection, and ultimately progress. He speaks of these losses not as setbacks, but rather as catalysts that can propel him forward, once more towards the ultimate goal of the title. And if for any second you doubted his resolve, then all you must do is peer deep into his reaction after a back-to-back loss, this time in a Fight of the Year candidate against Justin Gaethje, a spectacle that highlighted Chandler's tenacity and barbarism. His post-fight attitude once more heralded the same poignant notions of maturation and flourishing in defeat. He promised to be back, stronger, harder, and hungrier than ever. And as the title seemingly distanced itself from him, he never for one moment seemed deterred or swayed by the dwindling of championship opportunity, and in fact seemed even more convinced that a redemption arc, a comeback story, would be far more deserving of a title shot than any string of wins could warrant. In these moments of career decline, Chandler always seems to have his attention pulled in a more meaningful direction. He would adopt his second son, this time a newborn, and in that beautiful moment of being a father, once more a matchup would beckon him back to the fight game. Tony Ferguson would ultimately be the man who fell victim to Chandler's redemption, and it's a story that plagues this sport. Fans of this wicked game see matchups that pair two idols together, matchups that despite whoever leaves with their hand raised leaves feelings of anguish as we lament for the loss of the other. Tony Ferguson was there to snap a 3-fight losing streak after an unprecedented decline. The first round seemed to signify the return of the boogeyman after knocking Chandler down, but at the very beginning of the second round, Chandler did the unthinkable, becoming the first fighter to knock out clean El Kukui. The fight served as a microcosm of Chandler's tale, all the odds against him, beaten and the tide turning against him, and despite it all, he rose to the top with sheer grit, determination and resolve. And it's this story of Michael Chandler that resonates with all of us, from the countless victories drowned out by the crowd's deafening roars to the subtle silences of defeat as he pulls his body from the canvas. Michael Chandler's perseverance through losses and setbacks light the way forward, and a new path becomes visible through the murk and haze of failure. That persistence, so interwoven into the fabric of his childhood and wrestling career, carries him even still upward towards hope. And as we watch him live by the words he so violently protested in the octagon, "See you at the top," we know that in those moments of being shattered, the whole that is reformed is stronger and more resilient.